Oh, hello. Welcome to my bar review show. Today we're talking about trusts. Trusts involve trust requirements. This is what you need to create a trust. Express trust. These are normal people-made trusts. Remedial trust. Court-made trust to correct problems. Beneficiary or creditor right to distribution. Who gets the money? Trust modification. Changes to trust. Principal and income allocation, how to split principal and income, trust admin and trustees' duties, how to run trust, trustees' liabilities when trustee is in trouble, trustees' resignation and removal, I quit or you're fired, and finally we have future interests. Why a break so soon? Because this is the beginning of the next section. All right, you can pause the video and come back when you like. Trust requirements. You need money. Someone with money who wants to create a trust. Intent. Trustee to manage things, and someone who gets the money. A beneficiary. 1. Money. These are trust assets. These can be cash, securities, real estate, or life insurance policy. Then you need someone. 2. Someone. This is called the grantor or the settlor. This is the trust creator. May also be trustee and or the beneficiary. 3. Intent. Intent to create a trust. 4. Trustee. The trustee holds trust property's legal interest or title. The court will appoint the trustee if settlor fails to designate one or more. Finally, we have 5. Beneficiary. The beneficiary needs to be ascertainable. An ascertainable beneficiary holds trust property's equitable title. The beneficiary must impliedly or expressly accept her interests. Break for a new topic. You can pause the video and come back when you like. All right, express trust, private express trust, or charitable trust. Private express trust clearly states settlor's intention to transfer property to trustee for benefit of one or more ascertainable beneficiaries. We'll talk about the elements and we'll talk about different types. The elements are intent, trust property, valid trust purpose, ascertainable beneficiaries. Intent. The rule. Settlor with capacity may manifest present intent to transfer to trustee for valid purpose. Intent's manifestation must occur prior to or simultaneously with property's transfer. No consideration is required. Precatory trust. Expresses a hope or a wish transferred property be used for another's benefit rather than creating a legal obligation. Must contain specific instructions to fiduciary and must be shown, absent trust imposition, an unnatural disposition of donor's property would exist because of familial relations or a history of support between donor and intended beneficiary. Trust property. Trust must be funded with identifiable trust property. But if trust invalid for asset lack is later funded, then trust arises if settlor or grantor re-manifest intent to create the trust. Trust property must be identifiable and segregated, and it must be described with reasonable certainty. Valid trust purpose. Trust can be created for any purpose if trust is not illegal or contrary to public policy, possible to achieve, and is for its beneficiary's benefit. If one of several trust terms violates public policy, then alternative terms will be honored, or if no alternative terms, then term will be stricken. But trust will not fail unless trust removal is fatal. Ascertainable beneficiaries. The rule: beneficiaries must be identifiable by name, so equitable interest can be transferred automatically by law operation and directly benefit person. Settlor may refer to acts of independent significance to identify beneficiaries. Exceptions. Trust for unborn children's benefit or to reasonably definite class will be upheld, and charitable trusts do not need individual ascertainable beneficiaries. All right, now we're talking about private express trust types. We have inter vivos, the rule, pour over, Totten, life insurance, living trust, and testamentary trust. Inter vivos, during life. The parts are delivery, writing, oral evidence. Delivery must accompany trust declaration if third-party trustee is named, whereby settlor parts with dominion and control over trust property. Writing, required only for real property. Court imposes constructive trust when writing is lacking. Oral evidence. A written trust agreement that's unambiguous on its face has no parole evidence. If it's ambiguous on its face, parole evidence allowed in to show settlor's intent, but only if written agreement is ambiguous on its face. A pour-over trust. A will provision directing property division to trust on happening of event, even if trust instrument was not executed in line with the statute of will, as long as trust is identified in will and its terms are set forth in written instrument. Totten trust, designation given to bank account and depositor's name as trustee for named beneficiary. There is no legal and equitable title separation. It can be revoked by any lifetime act manifesting depositor's intent to revoke, or by a will. Life insurance trust. Proceeds go to trust on insured's death. Trust is policy owner and trust is irrevocable. Living trust. Typically, settlor names herself trustee until death. Settlor can change successor trustee and beneficiaries until death. Trust property is not protected from creditors or federal estate taxation. Creditors and federal tax reps. Living trust. Living trust property is not protected from creditors or federal estate taxation. Testamentary. Within testamentary, we have the definition. We'll talk about secret trust, semi-secret trust, and modern trend. Definition. Occurs when trust terms are contained in writing, will, or document incorporated by reference into a will. Secret trust. Looks like testament gift, but is created in reliance on named beneficiaries promised to hold and administer property for another. Constructive trust imposed on property or intended beneficiary. Semi-secret trust. Occurs when will directs gifts held in trust, but testator fails to name beneficiary or specify trust terms or purpose. Resulting trust is imposed on property to be held for testator's heirs. Modern trend. Impose constructive trust in intended beneficiary's favor, if known, in both secret and semi-secret trusts. All right, we're moving on to charitable trust. We've got the purpose, indefinite beneficiaries, rule against perpetuities or RAP, the Cypress Doctrine, and honorary trusts. Purpose of charitable trust: poverty relief, education or religion advancement, good health, government purpose, and any other purposes benefiting the community at large. Indefinite beneficiaries. Beneficiaries must be the community at large, either directly or indirectly. Rule against perpetuities or RAP. Charitable trusts are exempt from RAP. Trust may continue indefinitely. The Cypress Doctrine. The court may modify charitable trust to seek alternative charitable purpose if original purpose becomes illegal, impractical, or impossible to perform. Honorary trust. No private beneficiaries, usually for a pet or a non-charitable purpose. Wow, was that long? You can pause the video here and come back when you like. All right, we're back. Remedial trust. Involve a resulting trust, a constructive trust, and a gift over clause. Resulting trust purpose. When trust fails, court creates resulting trust requiring property holder to return property to settler or settler's estate to prevent unjust enrichment. When imposed, purchase money resulting trust, express trust failure, or incomplete trust assets disposition due to an excessive corpus. Constructive trust purpose. Used to prevent unjust enrichment if settler causes fraud, duress, undue influence, duty breach, or third parties' detrimental reliance on false rep. Gift over clause purpose. Provides for trust property's disposition if trust purpose fails. We are moving along nicely. Another break. You can pause the video and come back when you like. All right, beneficiary or creditor right to disposition, right to distribution. We'll talk about alienation, a support trust, a mandatory trust, discretionary trust, and spendthrift trust. Alienation. Beneficiary's equitable interest in trust property is freely alienable unless a statute or trust instrument limits this right. Support trust. Directs trustee to pay income or principal as necessary to support trust beneficiary and maintain lifestyle. Support trust creditors. Creditors cannot reach those assets unless providing necessity to beneficiary. Trustee can pay directly. Support trust creditors. Creditors cannot reach support trust assets unless providing necessity to beneficiary. Trustee can pay directly. Discretionary trust. Trustee given complete discretion regarding whether or not to apply payments to income or principal to beneficiary. Creditors have same rights as beneficiary if trustee exercises discretion to pay. Discretionary trust creditors. Creditors have same rights as discretionary trust beneficiary if trustee exercises discretion to pay. Mandatory trust. Trustee has no discretion. Trust doc explains in detail how and when trust property is to be distributed. Spendthrift trust. Expressly restricts beneficiary's power to voluntarily voluntarily or involuntarily transfer beneficiaries' equitable interest. Creditors usually cannot reach trust interest if governing instrument contains a spendthrift clause, unless for child or spousal support, tax lien holders, and sometimes basic necessities providers. Spendthrift trust creditors. Creditors usually cannot reach trust interest if governing instrument contains a spendthrift clause, unless for child or spousal support, tax lien holders, and sometimes basic necessities providers. Creditors need to chill. You can pause the video and come back when you like. All right, trust modification involves termination, settler's intent, and trustee's power to terminate. Termination, the rule. Trust terminates automatically only when trust purpose has been accomplished. Trust may terminate by consent if settler is deceased or has no remaining interest, and trustee plus all beneficiaries consent. Court terminates trust if purpose has been achieved or becomes illegal, impracticable, or impossible. Revocable trust can be terminated by settler at any time, and irrevocable trust usually cannot be terminated. Majority or UTC rule. Trust is presumed revocable unless trust expressly states otherwise. Minority rule. Trust is presumed irrevocable unless trust expressly states otherwise. Unfulfilled material purpose. Under Claflin doctrine, trustee can block premature trust termination if trust is shown to have unfulfilled material purpose. Discretionary trust, support trust, spendthrift trust, and age-dependent trust. Revocation method. Settler may amend or revoke according to trust terms, or, if silent, by manifesting clear and convincing intent evidence, a will or a codicil. Equitable deviation doctrine. Court may modify trust terms without seeking beneficiaries' consent. 1. Due to unanticipated circumstances if changes would further trust purpose, or 2. Terms relate to trust properties management and existing terms would be impracticable, wasteful, or impair trust administration. Settler's intent. A settler must expressly reserve right to modify or terminate trust to be granted such powers. Otherwise, modification or termination can occur only with all beneficiaries' consent and if proposed change will not interfere with trust's primary purpose. Trustee's termination power. Trustee has no termination power acting alone, unless trust contains express termination provisions. Abstract art is weird. You can pause the video and come back when you like. All right, principal and income allocation. Remaindermen are entitled to trust principal. Life beneficiaries are entitled to trust income. Allocating principal or income. Allocation must be balanced so as to treat present and future trust beneficiaries fairly, unless otherwise authorized. UPAIA, trustee can recategorize and reallocate as necessary to fulfill trust purpose. Stock distribution, treated as principal distribution, whether classified as dividend or split. Receipts allocation. Generally, amount received in exchange for trust property gets allocated to principal, and amount received in exchange for trust property's use gets allocated to income. Expenses allocation. 1/2 of trustees' compensation and 1/2 of accounting and other costs is charged to income. The remaining 1/2 of those expenses is charged to principal. Let's get into trustees. All right. Trust administration and trustees' duties. Powers, duty of loyalty and good faith, prudence duty, inform and account, duty of prudent administrator, and finally powers of appointment. Powers. The rule. Trustee has powers necessary to act as reasonable person in managing trust. For instance, revoke, withdraw, or modify, including implied power to contract, sell, lease, or transfer trust property. Third parties must act in good faith and give valuable consideration. Third parties are not liable if third parties act without actual knowledge such action constitutes trust breach. Duty of loyalty and good faith. The rule. Duty to administer trust in good faith, subjective standard, and duty to act reasonably, objective standard, when investing property and otherwise managing trust solely in beneficiaries' best interest. Self-dealing. Rule. When trustee personally engages in transaction involving trust property, a conflict of interest arises between trustee's duties to beneficiaries and her own personal interest. Prohibited transactions. Buying or selling trust assets, selling property between trustee manages, borrowing from or making loans to trust, using trust assets to secure personal loan, engaging in prohibited transactions with friends or relatives, or otherwise acting for personal gain through trustee position. Irrebuttable presumption that trustee breached the loyalty duty when self-dealing is at issue. No further inquiry into trustee's reasonableness or good faith is required because self-dealing is a per se breach. Exceptions. Even when self-dealing is authorized by settlor, court order, or all beneficiaries, transaction must still be reasonable and fair to avoid liability for breach. Conflicts of interest. Assessed under reasonable and in good faith standard if alleged conflict of interest cannot be characterized as self-dealing. Prudence duty. The rule. Trustee may delegate responsibilities if it would be unreasonable for settlor to require trustee to perform such tasks. However, critical function concerning property is discretionary and not delegable. Duty to oversee decisions. Trustee can delegate determination of management and investment strategies, but must oversee decision-making process. Prudence duty. Trust investments. Prudent investor rule. Requires trustee to act as prudent investor would act when investing his own property, putting less emphasis on risk level. Trustee must exercise reasonable care, caution, and skill when investing and managing trust assets. Factors considered in determining compliance. Trust distribution requirements, general economic conditions, investment in relation to trust overall investment portfolio, trust need for liquidity, income regularity, and capital's preservation or appreciation. Duty to diversify. Trustee must adequately diversify trust investments to spread loss risk under total performance portfolio approach, but not if administrative costs would outweigh the benefits. Make property productive duty. By pursuing all possible claims, deriving max income amount from investments, selling assets when appropriate, securing insurance, paying expenses, and acting within reasonable time in all manners. Duty to be impartial does not require trustee treat each beneficiary equally, but it does require trustee not to be influenced by favoritism or animosity. Trustee must balance present and future beneficiaries' interests by investing property so it produces reasonable income while preserving principal for remainderment, and sell trust property within reasonable time if failure to diversify would be inconsistent with total performance of portfolio approach. Inform an account, the duty to disclose complete and accurate info about trust property's nature and extent, including allowing access to trust records and accounts if trustee intends to sell significant portion of trust assets. Duty to account must periodically account for action taken on trust behalf, so trustee's performance can be assessed against trust terms. Duty of a prudent administrator. Duty to administer trust as prudent person. Must exercise reasonable care, skill, and caution with regard to trust property. Includes duties to secure property's possession within reasonable time, to maintain real property, to segregate personal property from trust assets. Trustee is only liable when duty to segregate breach, damage trust property. Appointment powers, usually given to beneficiary, enables holder to direct trustee to distribute some or all trust property without regard to trust provisions. Animals teach us things. Again, you can pause the video and come back when you like. Trustees' liabilities, beneficiaries' enforcement right, liabilities for others' acts, and third parties. Trustees' liabilities, beneficiaries' enforcement right, lost profits, lost interest, and other losses resulting from trust breach are trustees' responsibility. Beneficiaries may sue trustee and seek damages or trustee's removal for breach. Liabilities for other acts. Co-trustees are jointly liable. Trustee is liable for predecessor's breach if the new trustee failed to address predecessor's breach or was negligent in delivering property. Trustee is generally liable for agent's breach if trustee directs or conceals agent's act or fails to exercise reasonable supervision over agent. Third parties. Trustee is personally liable on contracts entered into and for tortious acts committed while acting as trustee. Can seek indemnity from trust if trustee was acting within scope of trustee's responsibilities. Third parties. When property is improperly transferred as a result of trust breach to third party who is not a bona fide purchaser, beneficiary or successor trustee may have transactions set aside. Break for a new topic. You can pause the video and come back when you like. Trustee's resignation and removal. Resignation. 30 days notice to qualified beneficiaries, living settlor, and co-trustees, or by court approval. Removal. By court due to trustee being incapable of performing or materially breaching duty. Conflict of interest. Conflict between trustee and beneficiary. Trust poor performance. Break too much. That Joe. You can pause the video again and come back when you like. All right, future interests. The general rule and class gifts. General rule. Grantor retains reversion, reverter possibility, or entry right. Beneficiary given remainder or executory interest. Class gifts. Deceased class member's share is paid to that class member's surviving issue by statute. Modern trend is substitute gift is created in deceased issue's descendants, so predeceased beneficiaries' trust interest will not lapse. And we're done. Congratulations, you finished trusts.